Okay, today I show you the first process in creating bronze plastic. The first thing what I had done is I made my model from wax, and the technique I describe here is a so-called lost wax technique. So this is a wax model. It is a small incense container which I will produce in Japanese style. It is here a leaf of a water flower, and you see here the bottom of the container, and you see the top of the container. So here I prepare for the casting process the mold. This is the first step. I fix this wax model on the top here of a casting form. Finally, I put this metal ring over and a piece of paper wrap around it so to have a higher cylinder, and I will then cast, or not cast, I will fill the whole thing with plaster and mixed with some grinded stone, brick stone, in a ratio of 1/3 of plaster and 2/3 of grinded brick stone. And this will, before I fill in the plaster, mix with the stone, I have to degas it. And here I have a vacuum facility. I can put my plaster mix into this container here, switch on these vacuum pump, and then that will degas. The reason for it is to get rid of the air in the plaster, because this could cause bubbles on the surface here of the model. And if you cast it afterwards with bronze, which is my intention, I would have then bubbles on the surface, and there you need much more work to get rid of them, and they could even disturb the fine structure which I put on the surface here during this model procedure. So it is a good way to degas always your plaster before you cast it, before you pour it on the form. So I just prepared the mold. I just added this plaster and grinded stone powder. This is from brick, so it's high temperature resistant. I mix them 2/5 of plaster and 3/5 of stone powder, and you see here the rest. I mix them. This is a balance to measure the right amount. I mix them, added some water, and degassed it with a vacuum here, as said before. And then I poured the whole thing, the whole mix, into this prepared cylinder, which contain the upper part of, so the lid of the incense container which I wanted to cast. So the wax is now inside, the opening is down. We will see that later. Now we keep it to crystallize. It needs a couple of hours now, and then we will wrap it off, and then we will see how it looks like. So preparing the form first part of the mold. So for the dewaxing process, we took out the high pressure cooking boiler, and it's here on the top. The mold is inside with the wax, and we dewax under medium pressure for about half an hour. The water is inside up to here in this level. There's a rack inside, and on top is a mold upside down, so that the wax is during the heating phase dripping out into the water. The advantage is that later on, if you put this mold into the oven here, in the kiln, to burn it out, you have not so much wax which will start to burn, heating it up and leaving here the flame out. So it's better to dewax as much as possible in these boiler. Okay, I opened now the high pressure boil, and you see that the wax came out. It's on the surface of the water now, in the hot water, so it's still liquid. You can see already the prepared bronze pieces and the gloves, of course. And now this is a picture of the mold. It is upside down now. It's on the grid in the kiln. So he is opening on the top. So if the rest wax starts to evaporate, it will leave here via the top, and may occasionally could also start to burn. So I have to observe it at the beginning, especially if it reaches higher temperature. I start with 150 degrees Celsius to dry it, and later on I increase it to 300 for 1 hour. So starting with 150 for 2 hours, then going up to 300 for another hour, and then I went up slowly to 700 degrees, so that I really burn out the whole mold, so that the mold is absolutely dry and has no crystal, no water inside. Because if you cast hot bronze in it, it has to be absolutely free from paraffin, of course, but also from water. Otherwise you will get an explosion. You have to be very careful. So with experience, you know, the whole process now is over in a range of about 5 hours, starting with 150 up to 700, and later on then we will melt the bronze in this kiln, not kiln, in this furnace, and you have here the pot where you put in the bronze, and then you heat it up to 1100 degrees Celsius, and then later I show you in a separate value when we cast it. Now I describe a bit the workplace. On the left side you have here high resistant leather gloves, heat resistant. You have tongs to grab the crucible. You have a graphite stick to mix the bronze in the crucible. You have another set of tongs to grab the mold. This is to support the mold if I take it out of the kiln, and this small tong is used to grab scrap pieces of bronze and to apply them into the crucible, which is placed here in the kiln, in the furnace, so you can grab and apply then the copper, for instance, and the bronze pieces into the crucible later on. I placed the scrap pieces of bronze and the metal here on the top of the hot kiln to pre-warm it. It's not good to apply these bronze pieces cold into the melted bronze. It can splash, explode. So it's always good to preheat the metal which you apply into the hot crucible. You see on the ground here a sand bath. It's a fine grained sand, and I will then later on take out the hot mold from the kiln here, take it out and place it then in the hot sand, cover it with aluminium foil to keep the heat for a while, and then I prepare later on the bronze. So the idea is to keep the mold hot for a while and then to apply the liquid bronze into the still hot, couple of 100 degrees hot mold. This gives much better results, but it shouldn't, yeah. I will show this later. Okay, next step before casting. On top we have here the bronze spare parts preheated, and I add already the bronze to the furnace. It is already melting. The mold is in the kiln. It is heated up to 700 degrees, and I will soon take it out and place it here in the sand for the casting process. It cools down there for about 10 minutes to maybe 600 degrees, and that's the perfect temperature for the mold to fill it then with the 1100 degrees hot bronze. Okay, now we take out the mold from the pre-hot mold from the kiln. So it's about 700 degrees hot. Now we take the bronze. could work. Hot. Hot as well, my wife, Anne. Now we put this hot mold with the bronze in water. Successful. Look at this. The top of an incense. Compound. So the cleaned cast top of the incense container. It is a leaf of a water lily. I was casted like this. And now I go for the bottom part.